Airbnb shares are up after the company reported fourth quarter results that beat expectations and issued a first quarter revenue forecast that topped analyst estimates. The vacation rental platform is betting on premium travelers and expansion into hotels to offset softer demand from more cost-conscious customers. Joining us now to break this all down, Ronald Josey, Managing Director at Citigroup. Ronald, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. What are some of the numbers you like? What are some of the numbers that might be a little concerning to you?
Yeah, look, I think going into this print, there's a lot of unease on just everything related to AI and the disruption across most every single vertical. Travel notwithstanding, based on the research we've done, based on other news out there, travel is a top thing, a top vertical that people search on OpenAI or ChatGPT, on Gemini, and all these different chatbots. And so there's a lot of concern going into this quarter about what the potential impact has been or what it can be over the next couple of years. And what we got coming out of this quarter was accelerating room nights growth. They call it nights and seats booked growth. What we saw was improving overall gross bookings and revenue and profitability that was in line. But most importantly, the travel market feels like it has very strong momentum in 4Q that has continued into 1Q. And I think the number one thing taking out of this quarter is the improvements that Airbnb have done on the product side. So their own changes, notwithstanding what's going on in the market, notwithstanding the AI fear, but the changes around reserve now, paid later, around more transparent cancellation policies, around improved pricing for the hosts, all these things are actually adding to room night growth. And we think that can continue, particularly if as the World Cup comes on and these other larger global events take place. So, our takeaway from the quarter is travel demand seems to be in a good position. It's continuing into 1Q from a macro perspective. And Airbnb is launching newer products that are helping to drive greater overall growth and accelerating growth in their core nights booked or basically nights and seats booked metric.
Any concerns that it seems to be the premium travelers that are bringing the money in, this K-shaped economy kind of coming back in here? Any worries about that, or is that something that there's room to grow with?
Yeah, I mean, look, it seems as if there's a lot of things to worry about, overall macro and AI being one of them. It's interesting. 3Q travel trends were better. That clearly continued into 4Q, and it seems as if that's continuing here this quarter as well. From a K-shaped perspective, there's a lot of insights and thoughts around what that means to the broader travel trends. But frankly, I mean, we're seeing greater overall results across the board. And so Airbnb is benefiting from whomever it is that's spending these dollars. The K-shape is certainly one of them. But I think there's this broader demand for travel, and it's sustaining the pricing power and also just the supply that's out there.
And were the nights booked, was it pretty much across the board? Were there hotspots for it, like location, regions and locations?
That's a great question. I mean, it's funny. It's interesting. So the U.S. was a good market. I think nights booked rose about mid-single digits. We call that 5%. But really the standouts in our view were EMEA as well as Latin America. And the news out of Latin America, and maybe this is a broader picture, the news out of Latin America is Brazil is now a top 5 country. And so a few years ago, Airbnb was clear to say 75% of overall gross bookings came from their core 5 markets: US, France, Canada, Australia, UK, as an example. And they were really focusing on these next 9 markets, which Brazil was one of them. Fast forward 2 years later, after these investments in supply, generating greater demand, et cetera, Brazil is now a top 5 market. And so LATAM saw accelerating growth, I think, in the high teens. And I think you're going to see that playbook, although every country is different, but that playbook that they put through in Brazil replicated across some of their newer emerging markets like Germany and Italy, like Japan and others in Asia as well, Mexico and in LATAM too.
And I think you said France was one of the top 5, but Germany was not. Why is there such a discrepancy between the European countries?
Yeah, I mean, it gets into nights booked, country of origin from nights booked is the way to think about it. And for some reason, France, UK have adopted Airbnb for years. You would have thought Italy and Germany and Spain, for that matter, would be larger, but they're more destinations as opposed to traveling out. And I think that's where Airbnb is really trying to make sure they're both destinations, but also origins of room nights booked. And there's different cultures. Germans are very different than French, et cetera, that I think they need to do some product changes that they've done. And now it's a matter of time before, more countries can start contributing to overall gross bookings and nights booked growth.
And they're pushing into hotels? How's that working?
Yeah. It's funny. Of all the things that I mentioned, right? Better macro, reserve now, pay later, new host pricing. I didn't mention hotels. I think from a hotel perspective, it's new, right?
Yeah.
And as well as services and experience, these are new opportunities for Airbnb. Historically, hotels have always been for, call it, overflow, or where perhaps there wasn't as much supply. Now it's as part of the overall trip. If you fly into a city like Madrid, for example, or Paris, but your end destination is, call it, Annecy or somewhere else in France, maybe you spend the night in that major airport, whether it be Paris or Geneva or whatever, at a hotel, and then you get ultimately to your Airbnb, to your rental. And so, hotels are a means to a broader end, as well as just basically offering more services to every traveler.
Okay, we have to wrap it up there, Ronald, but thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Ronald Josey is Managing Director at Citigroup.